Hey everyone, I just realized that I had my microphone on mute. Hey everybody, I just wanted to see if I could go live on LinkedIn through Riverside FM, and it looks like that I can. So that's awesome. So I wanted to, I researched basically some of the most frequently asked questions around SEO. And quite honestly, they're outdated. And what is a keyword and what is SEO? And I'm like, I'm not touching that. So I wanted to touch on the state of SEO and where are we at in terms of the space, where are we at with AI, educating clients, and, if anyone does pop up and has questions, well, I'm certainly here for that. So I wanted to sort of touch on. I've been in SEO now for 20 years, and I've seen a lot happen in the space, and I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've worked at a few agencies, and it's surprising who's still involved in the industry and who's not, even for people that I would work with. I started just a quick snapshot. I started as a web developer in 2006, got my diploma. And originally I wanted to be a chemist. That was clearly evident that I did not have the brain cells for that. The second thing I liked, and maybe I'll share this story another day, but a teacher would show me how to make a website because I happened to look at the Liverpool website in class, and rather than throw me out, show me some cool HTML, and that would have been in year 10. And ever since year 10, I was fascinated. This would have been 2003, probably 2002, 2003. And I was absolutely fascinated with websites from them. When chemistry was no longer something viable, I went to TAFE and got my diploma. And for the first year in 2007, I started building websites. And in that time, my boss would say to me, do some meta keywords, do some meta descriptions, do some meta titles. And back in 2007, you could really manipulate search engines quite easily. And to see my boss telling me, can you put these keywords, when you're building a website, create the meta keywords, dump some keywords in there, or dump some keywords at the bottom of the page. And really, I was still trying to even understand or grasp the concept of a keyword. I'm like, even the whole meta tags in 2007 kind of threw me off. I'm thinking, like, what is this garbage? I thought this was a complete and total waste of time. And you would see pages rankings, and I didn't fully grasp exactly what I was doing. I didn't understand the commercial benefit of this, basically. Then I left that business at the end of 2007. I was just before Christmas, put my resignation in, and I started working full-time in February 2007 for a company called eWeb Design. That had then changed to eWeb Marketing, and they basically told me, look, you've got the job, but we're not building websites. We're going to be doing this SEO thing full-time. And at the time, I needed a job, and so I would work on SEO full-time. Before, it was just kind of like doing SEO here, there, add some keywords. It's very different than, it's like, it was more like a, would you like fries with that type add-on upsell type service that I was doing, where websites was the primary. And now that SEO became the primary component for me full-time in 2008. And so went from working in it part-time to working in it full-time, and didn't like it. Did not like it at all. I was working full-time in SEO, did not like it. I remember ringing my wife or girlfriend at the time and saying, this is a total waste of time. I don't know why I'm here. And she was the one that said, stay with it, stick with it. Long story short, there was a client called futurefood.com.au where I was able to get a first place ranking for food, or 2 first place rankings for food consultant and food consultants. That would have been around April, May 2008. And immediately, like something had flicked in my autistic brain, my neurodivergent brain, and something set inside of me that is still here. And I guess the love of the chase, the love of the first place rankings was birthed at that point. And yeah, look, I would be in SEO full time at the end of this year, 20 years. But my real love for it probably is only 19 years old, 18 and a half years old, let's say. And so it wasn't until that particular ranking that had changed everything. And so over the years, I've seen a lot of SEO come and go. I've seen SEOs come and go. I've seen the industry change, evolve, algorithms come. I've done a very, very poor job at really keeping up to date with what's happening in terms of algorithms. What I do keep up to date with is user behavior. So when SEO had probably gone through the most significant change during my tenure was obviously when mobile phones started to become, or Google started to become a mobile first index. And the attention switched from desktops to mobile. And how we built websites was very sort of mobile orientated. But that was significant because Google My Business was a big part of the mobile rankings, a lot more than desktop. How we rank sites from then on changed. They had to be mobile compliant. We want them to be, built, there was AMP that came out, which was accelerated mobile pages, which quite frankly, I tested and I didn't really like it. I thought, what's the point of this? Why not just make a mobile friendly website first? I mean, that is where the industry, even before Google announced that's kind of where it was heading. So I just thought that even though I did try accelerated mobile pages in 2015 type stuff, I thought, this was just no point doing this. Let's just create websites and experiences for mobile primarily. And now I would say the most significant change in SEO is AI. And that's because I go back to user behavior. I got a question the other day on LinkedIn about sort of, are you focusing on AI? I mean, are you transitioning into AI like it's something different than what I normally focus on? And the question is, no. I see a lot of posts, I see a lot of rhetoric about SEO is dead. And if people clarify what they mean by that, I may agree with them. And here's why. Any form of SEO that can be manipulated, automated, can be replicated. And then by that very definition, that SEO is always going to be at some point in time becomes redundant. You look at everyone started using, schema FAQs to death. Google just ignores it. If in SEO, what can die in SEO, what can have a lifespan in SEO, if you will, is any SEO that is easy to replicate or easier to replicate, or it's a product-based, SEO type service or strategy. These things can be replicated. Where it's a lot more difficult to replicate is when you focus on what I do, more essentially brand-based SEO. And so what I'm looking at with brand-based SEO, brand-based geo, it doesn't really make any difference. The strategy is the same. And what we're looking for is the same. And if you have a look at the experiments that I've done with Perplexity, it does get influenced by Google search results. It does get influenced by where you're featured and who mentions you across the web and lists and things that would benefit you on SEO. Because brand translates back into SEO. Brand translates back into geo. I mean, I'm thinking of a jeweler right now. Okay, actually, I'll give you the example. when I was working with Larson and we worked on Warner Brothers with the Bachelor ring for Matt and Laura, the benefit that has 10 years on is still present. Because anything that is brand based, and that's going to have impact, in my opinion, on geo as well as SEO, because anything that is brand orientated almost has this evergreen benefit. Okay. And brand is difficult to measure because ultimately a good brand will have a healthy amount of brand searches. And often at times SEOs aren't fussed on brand orientated searches. And this is where I think SEOs will need to evolve and to start seeing the big picture. If you're not fascinated by growing branded search, you're missing the point. Clearly missing the point. Everything we do as marketers, whether SEOs or paid search or paid social, should be about building brand equity. And that's going to be translated quite clearly and evidentially in our brand-based searches in Google Search Console. You should be able to see it, or Bing, etc. Our citations in AI will increase once more people are like actively searching. Do you think they're not taking that into account? It's going to be a lot easier for a brand like Coca-Cola to transition to evolve over time with the search algorithms and search evolution than it is for a mum and pop small business who doesn't really have a brand. And I know SEOs that have focused on things like programmatic SEO or like these sorts of things are always going to have a lifespan and they ain't going to be a long one, right? When we have helped a client build an article, using data analysts on something like, let's say, how much should you spend on an engagement ring? And then we've gone out and used a data analyst or did a survey to get the data based upon what men and women have said or answered our set of questions and put that data into an article and write an article on it. And then get that cited by Westpac, cited by other banks and insurance companies. That's going to have a positive benefit on the brand. And ultimately, the relationships we've helped our clients build with journalists, the viral content through articles and blogs that we've helped our clients develop, this moves the brand needle. I'm thinking of another jeweler that I was hoping to be a part of their story a long time ago. Did have an opportunity, but things didn't work out. But I'm thinking of one particular jeweler right now that their entire link profile, I would say 90% of their link profile, and I'm talking like great links. I'm talking about everyone took note of this jeweler on the rise. Their backlink profile was 90% at the very least built off the back of an Instagram and TikTok campaigns. So strategic Instagram, highly engaging, popular content on Instagram and on TikTok would then get translated into brand mentions back to the website from fashion sites. I mean, what part of SEO is that? What part? I mean, why wouldn't that not be a good idea? Whether it's geo, whether it's SEO, whatever it is. Why would that not be a good idea? And that's my point. But if you're focused on data, keywords all the time, and you're not focused on how do we make inroads into our target market? How do we take a piece of this pie? And one of my favorite things to do now is lean more into consultation than hands-on, because 20 years in SEO, at the end of this year, I'm basically going to almost be too expensive to do hands-on, and it's not really going to be in the client's best interest to just focus purely on hands-on, because then I'm looking after my own interest. And so what I really love to do is make clients understand that my role ultimately is to make myself redundant. And when I say that, they're like, what's this guy talking about? Here's what a lot of agencies aren't telling you. that you need to be able, like, look, if you're in super, like I got a client now that signed up, they got literally 2 competitors. Okay. They're a bit different. You still don't want to take it for granted, but they're a little bit different. But if you're in jewelry, you're in the health industry, you're in fashion, jewelry, health, retail, right? You're in a hyper competitive industry. And if you think you just hand over money to an external agency and that's it, and in the era that we're about to embark on, they're looking after their interests, not yours. And if you don't have budget to bring in internal resources, I try to help clients find interns. I try to help clients find part-time staff. I've gone and found clients staff, some of which are still working there and doing a great job. And I don't even work there anymore. And so it's very important that I help businesses realize that, yeah, with me, my selling point is I can get you to your goals faster, right? I do believe, I've got to back myself here, that any client's going to work with me, I need to feel as though they're going to get to their results quicker with me than without me. I mean, that's got to be where my headspace is at. Otherwise, where's my value? Knowledge, education, infrastructure, and even the ability to help businesses scale is a big part of my integrated services, right? So that's where I can find where I can be the most beneficial. I don't need to charge much. And I love helping the internal teams really understand the process, really grasp it, get the right mindset, brand focused mindset. How does that translate for SEO? Exactly. How does that translate for geo? How does that translate on social media? As a business, your entire business as a business is to engage, is to provide value. And obviously, that's going to be a harder job to do in more competitive niches. I mean, think about what you're asking. If I got a jeweler that rings me up tomorrow and says, I want to work with you, we've got 5,000 people a month now, and we want 30,000 in 12 months' time. Well, you want an extra piece of this pie that either one or more companies have, and you're looking to take a slice of that market. And it's hard to get traffic now from search because now you've got 0-click impressions and all the rest of it, right? There's a lot that goes in. But impressions is also an undervalued commodity in the search landscape. Once upon a time, McDonald's, its whole advertising was based upon eyeballs. It was called billboards. How were they tracking that? They weren't tracking billboards. They weren't tracking newspaper ads. Okay? There was no TV. And even TV, what were they going to track with TV? It was all about eyeballs. It was all about the attention. And really, that is also fundamental. Can we measure that through branded search? Sure. Sure we can, because with SEO, branded search in SEO can be a combination of platforms, mediums, sources, online, offline. So absolutely, we've got more of an idea. Marketing is never going to be a perfect, trackable resource. But you're going to have to realize that without it, or without the ability to know how to tell stories, to engage a market, not like understanding the power of engagement, impressions, attention, engagement, conversion. Those 3 steps can then be broken down further and further of what that actually looks like. For me, if you're a jeweler or you're targeting people in Sydney or in Melbourne, not running TikTok ads in these demographical areas is absolutely crazy because it's so cheap to run. It's never been so cheap. Like I can get 30,000 people to watch my podcast for $80 on TikTok. I mean, obviously your content should have goals, should have a reason and a purpose. But the purpose is always thinking about how does it solve the user's problem? Is it entertaining? Is it educational? Is it helpful? Right? Because ultimately, you build a brand through education, through entertainment, through being helpful, through being different. Like there's many ways that people say, how do I build a brand? There's many ways to build it, but it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. And at this point in time, in my 20 years, well, I don't have time to work with anyone that doesn't want to at least explore, hey, we want to build a brand. We want to be number one. And we are willing to do whatever it takes to be number one. That's what excites me. It doesn't really excite me to be part of, like, sometimes I get a client that's like, this is our lower end, company, and we just really want traffic to it. What can you do for me? I just don't get excited about that anymore. Like, okay, there'd be plenty of other SEOs that will take your money, but that's just not, it's not a fit. It's not a fit. I get more excited with an entrepreneur that says, help me build this, Andrew, because I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I want to use you to help me build my SEO plan, to help me be part of the digital marketing strategy that I want to build. But my budget's $500 or $1,000. If I believe in an entrepreneur, that's fine. I can work with that budget. But I really need to believe that this person is the real deal, or people are the real deal. If you're not looking at my point in time to come into a business and with the end game, because you have to ask these SEOs if they say, what is the end game here? When do I get to a point where I no longer need you? Like, what does that look like? Right? What does that look like? Or do I have to just keep paying money to you in perpetuity, and then the moment I stop paying you, results disappear? Does that sound like an opportunity for you as a business owner, or a liability? I guess it's how you perceive that notion. For me, it's quite clear. I'm looking at how quickly I can make myself redundant. That's the game. And when I said that to the most recent client that we signed up, and she was looking at us and another agency, and originally she had picked this other agency, but I told her ultimately, but she didn't like the terms and conditions, because we don't have terms and conditions, right? I mean, theoretically we do, but I'm talking like month to month. We know once a client comes aboard, they're staying. They won't get this anywhere else. I back myself, but at the same time, I realize I can't help everyone either. I've only got so much capacity, But I told this business owner, it is my job to make myself redundant for you as quickly as possible. Because what does that look like for you? You have the internal scale and knowledge and experience to take my brain and to build it out. And then, why would you need me anymore? Certainly not at a constant scale. And that might take 12 months, it might take 24 months, it might take 3 years, it might take 5 years. Now, we are ranking number one for the most important keywords, but she still doesn't have an internal team yet. And I'm not ready to let go of that yet, but the moment we can, I will. I let go work that's much more beneficial for me to keep financially, but I let it go because we hit a brick wall. We were not going any further than this. I could not do what I do best. I was still stuck working on schema because the developer didn't know how to implement it correctly. I couldn't effect change in a way that I was feeling most passionate. And I let that client go. And it was 3 years. I felt like I had taken them as far as I could take them. It's just one of those things. I've let go, I would say, in the last 36 months to 48 months, I've let go, not like out of all the clients that I've left, I've let go 90% of them. And maybe 2 have left on their own. Because they got to a point where they're like, Andrew, we can scale this ourselves now. We can do this ourselves now. And one I believe will, and one I believe probably will be back in a matter like maybe another 6 months. But I'm sure they'll come back when they realize we're not white. I didn't feel like they were ready yet for me to let go. Another one certainly was ready. And that's what I love. It's like these are your children and they're growing and now they can take care of themselves. It doesn't make sense to be looking after your 40-year-old son. If all things like are capable, you shouldn't have to. So that's the way I see the SEO. And the way we're going to do that is when you help clients understand that brand is the most important. When you understand that attention is a big part of it, impressions are a big part of it, engagement's a big part of it, PR is a big part of it, your differentiation is a big part of it, your product or service is a big part of it, and the ability to tell stories. I tell everyone the 3 biggest, I break it all down to storytelling, experience, and convenience. The SEC method I call. The brands that are going to be able to tell the best stories, the ones that are able to connect and get people talking about them and get people excited about them, that's what matters. Really, that's what matters. And the ability to articulate your point of difference. And this is my point of difference. And this is what I put up on my LinkedIn profile. You pay for experience or you pay for overheads. Because for the most part, any client that's got an internal team is now my target market. Even if they've got an external team, I guess that's fine. But I kind of would want to know, why is all their team external? And what's to say that they cannot bring it in-house, where with some leadership externally, you could get a better result? Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to return on investment, right? It makes sense for a brand to know how to build out a content plan, to build out their SEO strategies that translate well, to understand that their blog is potentially their biggest and best tool they have in the SEO industry. You can generate the links, you can build the internal links, right? You can build external links and internal links and build a lot of page authority from articles that can have enormous benefits of your SEO. One client in particular, we had the popular work boots, or most comfortable and popular work boots. Let me tell you right now, this article was not written very well. It generated between $5,000 to $10,000 every single month, because when you realize one thing about the trade is they're time poor. They've got no time. They don't want to browse through 300 different types of shoes. They just want you to tell them what's the most comfortable and safest shoe. So we put a list together, and that article generated $10,000 revenue. Now, they keep coming back to us now. That's brand. That's a small chunk of biting into the brand pie, because we understood their needs. We understand their time poor. Yes, this content gets searched for a lot because of these factors. Here's my big bonus if you got this far. Why, if your keyword has 3 or 4 keywords, if your keyword has 3 or 4 words and it's commercial orientated, why do you think your target market searches for that? What is it that makes your target market even give that commercial intent phrase of 4 or 5 words so much volume? Because in that answer lies an opportunity to tap into that perhaps your competitors aren't. How you look at this information. Guys, hopefully you found this really valuable. I'm going to be trying to do this live LinkedIn weekly. I want various topics that I can write about, talk about, share about, and I'll have to be able to share these things with you. LinkedIn is where a lot of that my clients are on, potential clients are on. It just makes sense for me to be here to talk, to educate, and to share my truth about, ultimately, it's in your best interest to make your SEO agency redundant as fast as you possibly can. Let me know, guys, if you got any questions, feedback, suggestions, and I look forward to taking it all on board. Have a lovely evening.